Jake Harrison stood in the middle of the huge council chamber and felt his heart sink. The room was bigger than 3 football fields put together. Thousands of alien beings sat in curved rows that went up and up until they disappeared into shadows. Some aliens had tentacles, others had fur or scales, and many had colors he had never seen before. But today they all looked the same to Jake. They all looked angry at humans. The voting board above his head showed numbers that made his stomach turn. 847 votes against humans. Only 12 votes for humans. It was over. 20 years of friendship, 20 years of helping each other, 20 years of building a better galaxy together, all thrown away in one afternoon. Jake had been Earth's voice in this chamber for 8 years. He had made friends here. He had shared meals with beings from 100 different worlds. He had celebrated their holidays and mourned their losses. Some of these aliens had been to Earth. They had seen human cities, met human families, and learned human customs. Yet they had just voted to kick humanity out of the club. The Zephyrian delegate Zixtel was still talking. His voice came through the translation device as cold and sharp. "Humans are too dangerous," he said. "They expand too fast, they fight too much. They cannot be trusted with equal power in this council." Jake wanted to laugh, but it would have been a bitter sound. Dangerous? The same humans who had rushed to help when the Void Swarm attacked Zephyr Prime 5 years ago? The same humans who had given their lives to save Zephyrian children they had never met. Dangerous indeed, the chamber filled with approving sounds from hundreds of different species. Clicks, hums, roars, and whistles all mixed together in a symphony of rejection. Jake stood alone in the center of it all, wearing his simple blue Earth uniform. He looked small compared to the massive aliens around him, but he kept his back straight and his face calm. On Earth, President Lisa Carter was sitting in her office when the news came through. The office was on the orbital station that circled Earth like a metal moon. Through the big windows, she could see the blue and green planet below. The same planet that had given the galaxy so much in just 20 years. The communication device on her desk buzzed with incoming messages. The first one was from Jake. His face appeared on the screen, tired and sad. "Madam President," he said, "the vote is final. We are now observer status only. No voting rights. No voice in council decisions. We are second-class citizens as of today." Lisa felt something cold settle in her chest. She had been president for 6 years, and she had watched humanity grow from a new species in the galaxy to one of the most respected members of the council. Human technology had solved problems that had puzzled alien scientists for centuries. Human soldiers had fought beside alien warriors to protect worlds they had never seen. Human doctors had cured diseases that had killed billions of alien lives. And now it was all being taken away because humans were too dangerous. The second message was from Admiral Chris Murphy, head of Earth's space fleet. His weathered face filled the screen, and his gray eyes were hard as steel. "They want to see dangerous?" he muttered. "We saved their lives more times than I can count, and this is how they repay us." Chris had been a soldier for 30 years. He had fought in the border wars where human tactics had ended conflicts that had been going on for decades. He had led the defense of the Outer Rim when the pirates tried to take over the trade routes. He had seen human blood spilled on alien soil to protect people who would never even know their names. Behind Chris, his officers were watching the news feeds from the council chambers. Captain Amy Rodriguez, a woman who had commanded ships in 7 different battles, was shaking her head. 20 years, she said. 20 years of partnership, and they throw it away in one vote. Lieutenant Colonel Rachel Brown, who had designed the early warning systems that protected half the galaxy, was staring at her computer screen. The data flowing across it showed all the human-built defenses that were keeping alien worlds safe at that very moment. "They have no idea what they just did," she whispered, on the science station orbiting Mars. Dr. Susan Blake was having the worst day of her career. She had spent 15 years sharing human knowledge with alien scientists. She had taught them about quantum physics, computer technology, and medical advances that had changed the galaxy. Some of her alien colleagues had become close friends. She had been a bridesmaid at a Centaurian wedding and had helped raise money for orphans on 6 different worlds. Now, her communication system was going crazy with incoming calls from those same alien friends. They were confused, scared, and sorry. But sorry was not going to change the vote. Dr. Kevin Walsh, who worked at the Medical Research Center on Council Central, was packing his things when his Centaurian partner arrived. The tall, blue-skinned alien named Zenka had worked with Kevin for 3 years on a cure for the plague that was killing millions of Centaurians. "Kevin, please," Zenka said in his careful English. "The vote, it was mistake. You cannot leave now. We are so close to finding cure." Kevin looked at his friend and felt his heart break a little. "The council has spoken, Zenka. They believe humans are too dangerous to be equal partners. I have to respect that decision. But the cure... The research is all in the computers. You have everything we discovered together. I know you can finish it without me." Kevin was lying, and they both knew it. The cure needed human insight into genetic patterns that alien minds could not see. Without Kevin, the project would probably fail, and millions of Centaurians would die. But the council had made its choice. Back on Earth, in a small restaurant in Tokyo, Dr. Peter Collins was having dinner with his family when the news broke. His wife, Maria, and his 2 children, Sam and Lucy, watched the news with growing shock. "Dad," said Sam, who was 16 and loved space travel, "does this mean we can't visit the council worlds anymore?" Peter looked at his son and tried to find the right words. "I don't know, Sam. Everything is going to change now." Lucy, who was only 12, did not understand politics, but she understood sadness. "Are our alien friends still our friends, Dad?" Peter hugged his daughter and wished he had an answer that would not break her heart. Across the galaxy, the same scene was playing out on 1,000 human ships and stations. Families were learning that their place in the galactic community had just been taken away. Children who had grown up thinking of aliens as neighbors and friends were learning that the universe was more complicated and cruel than they had believed. On the council space station, Jake Harrison was gathering his things from the human embassy. 20 years of memories were packed into boxes and storage containers. Photos of alien friends, gifts from grateful worlds, awards for service to the galactic community. All of it felt meaningless now. His assistant, Nancy Foster, was crying as she packed the last of the diplomatic files. "It's not fair, Ambassador. After everything we've done for them," Jake put a gentle hand on her shoulder. "Fairness is a human concept, Nancy. We cannot expect other species to share our values." But even as he said it, Jake felt the bitterness. In his own words, some of those aliens had learned human values. They had been to Earth and seen how humans treated each other and their world. They had shared human food and human laughter. And still they had voted to cast humanity aside. The final message of the day came from President Carter herself. Her face appeared on screens across human space, calm and determined. "My fellow humans," she said. "Today the Galactic Council has chosen to reduce our status to that of observers. They believe we are too dangerous to be trusted with full membership. We will respect their decision." She paused, and for just a moment, something cold and hard flashed in her eyes. "Effective immediately, I am authorizing Operation Silent Dawn. We will show the Council exactly how dangerous we really are." The transmission ended, and across human space, military officers and government officials began receiving new orders. Orders that would change the galaxy forever. In the council chambers, the aliens were already starting to celebrate. They had solved the human problem without bloodshed. They had put the dangerous species in its place. They had secured their own power and position. They had no idea what they had just unleashed. President Lisa Carter stood in her office and looked out at Earth spinning slowly below. The blue oceans and white clouds looked peaceful, but Carter knew that was about to change. She had just given the order that would shake the galaxy to its core. Operation Silent Dawn was not what anyone expected. There were no angry speeches planned, no threats of war, no demands for the council to change their minds. Instead, Carter had ordered something much more powerful. Every human in Council space would come home. All of them. Right now, the order went out through quantum communication channels to every human ship, station, and outpost in the galaxy. The message was simple and clear. Pack up, leave quietly. Come home, no explanations needed. No arguments allowed. Just leave. Captain Amy Rodriguez got the message while her transport ship was docked at Kepler Station, a huge trading post near the Galactic Center. She had been loading medical supplies for the refugee camps on Vega 7. Now she was reading orders that would change everything. Amy was 42 years old and had been running supply missions for 15 years. She knew every human outpost in the galaxy and many of the alien ones too. Her ship, the Earthwind, was not big or fancy, but it was fast and reliable. Just like Amy herself, she called her crew together in the main cargo bay. There were 12 humans on her ship, from engineers to doctors to trade specialists. They all looked confused when she read them the President's order. "Ma'am," said Lieutenant Ben Parker, her second in command. "What about the medical supplies? The vegan refugees really need them." Amy looked at the young officer and felt sorry. For him, Ben still believed that doing the right thing mattered in galactic politics. "New orders, Ben. We're going home." "All humans are going home." Dr. Helen Foster was working in her laboratory on Council Central when the message came through. She was the head of human medical research for the entire Council, and she had been trying to develop new vaccines for 3 different alien diseases. Her work had already saved millions of lives across the galaxy. Helen was a small woman with gray hair and kind eyes. She had spent 20 years building relationships with alien scientists. Some of her best friends were not human, but now she was reading an order that would end all of that. Her alien assistant, a tall insect-like being named Clicktar, was working at the next table when Helen started packing her research files. Clicktar made a worried, buzzing sound. "Dr. Foster?" "What are you doing?" Helen kept packing without looking up. "I'm going home, Clicktar. All humans are going home." "But the vaccine project... The files are all here. You and the others can continue the work." Helen was lying again, just like Kevin had lied to his Centaurian friend. The vaccine needed human understanding of genetic codes that alien minds could not grasp. Without Helen, the project would fail and millions would die. But the Council had made their choice. On the military station orbiting Rigel 4, Commander Rachel Brown was shutting down the early warning system that protected the entire outer rim. The system used human-designed sensors and human-written software to watch for enemy ships across 50 star systems. It had prevented dozens of surprise attacks and saved countless lives. Rachel was an engineer, not a soldier, but she understood war better than most generals. She knew that the system she was shutting down was the only thing standing between the peaceful rim worlds and the pirates who wanted to destroy them. But her orders were clear. The alien station commander, a bear-like creature named Gruffalo, came running into the control room as Rachel was entering the shutdown codes. "Commander Brown." "What are you doing? The sensors, they are going dark." Rachel did not stop typing. "I'm following orders, Gruffalo. All human personnel are being recalled to Earth space." "But the pirates, the Void Swarm, how will we see them coming?" Rachel finally looked up from her console. Her face was calm, but her eyes were sad. "That's not my problem anymore. The Council has decided that humans cannot be trusted with important responsibilities." She finished typing and pressed the final button. Across 50 star systems, the most advanced early warning network in the galaxy went dark. Millions of peaceful aliens were now blind to the dangers that surrounded them. Admiral Chris Murphy was in his office on Luna Base when he got word that the evacuation was going faster than anyone had expected. Humans were not arguing or complaining. They were just packing up and leaving. Professional, efficient, and silent. "Sir," reported Captain Rodriguez over the communication channel, "we're loading the last of the research staff from Council Central. Dr. Foster and her team are aboard. We'll be ready to depart in 2 hours." Chris nodded. "Any problems with the aliens?" "They're confused, sir. Some are begging us to stay. But no one is trying to stop us." "Good, stay professional." No angry words, no dramatic speeches, just do your job and come home. That was the strangest part of Operation Silent Dawn. Humans were not acting angry or hurt. They were acting like they were just changing jobs. They packed their things, transferred their files, and said polite goodbyes. Nothing more. Dr. Kevin Walsh was saying goodbye to his Centauran friend Zenka at the Medical Research Center. The tall blue alien looked desperate. Kevin, please understand. Many of us voted against the human exclusion. Many of us tried to stop this madness. Kevin nodded and shook his friend's hand. I know, Zenka, you've been a good friend and a good partner. I hope you find the cure you're looking for. But without? You're a brilliant scientist, Zenka. You don't need humans to succeed. Kevin picked up his bags and walked toward the shuttle bay. He did not look back, even though he could hear Zenka calling his name. It was better this way. Clean breaks healed faster than messy ones. On the trade station at Vega 7, the refugee camp administrators were panicking. The human medical team was packing up to leave, and they were taking their advanced medical equipment with them. Without human doctors and human medicine, thousands of refugees would die. The camp director, a motherly alien named Softwing, tried to convince Dr. Mary Johnson to stay. Please, Dr. Johnson, these people have lost everything. You cannot abandon them now. Dr. Johnson continued loading medical supplies into transport crates. She had been working at the refugee camp for 3 years, and she had delivered over 200 alien babies in that time. Each one had been like a small miracle to her. I'm not abandoning anyone, Softwing. The Council has made it clear that humans are not suitable partners for galactic civilization. I'm simply respecting that decision, but you are needed here. Doctor. Johnson stopped packing and looked at her alien friend. If I was needed, the Council would not have voted to exclude my people from galactic affairs. Perhaps you should ask them to send replacement medical staff. Softwing made a sound like crying, but Dr. Johnson did not change her mind. She finished packing and walked to the shuttle that would take her away from the camp forever, the Quantum communication network that connected the galaxy was starting to show problems. The human technicians who maintained the quantum resonance chambers were leaving their posts. Without constant human oversight, the delicate systems began to drift out of alignment. On the communication station at Volf 359, Chief Engineer Bob Stevens was explaining the situation to his alien replacement, a tentacled being named Squishka. The quantum resonance has to be adjusted every 6 hours, Bob said. The frequency drift is caused by stellar radiation, and each star system needs different settings. Squishka was trying to understand, but quantum physics was difficult even. For genius-level aliens, show me the calculations again. Bob pulled up the complex equations on his computer screen. Pages and pages of mathematics that described how to keep quantum particles connected across vast distances. It took human scientists 50 years to figure this out. I've been doing it for 10 years, and I still learn something new every day. Ken, you leave instruction manual? Bob smiled sadly. I'm leaving everything, Squishka. All the manuals, all the research, all the backup procedures. But understanding quantum resonance is not about reading books. It's about thinking in ways that ... Well, it's about thinking like a human. He gathered his personal belongings and headed for the door. Behind him, Squishka was staring at the computer screen full of equations that might as well have been written in an alien language. Which, from Squishka's point of view, they were all across the galaxy. The same scene was playing out. Humans were leaving behind technologies, procedures, and knowledge that had taken decades to develop. They were not taking anything that belonged to the Council, but they were also not explaining how anything worked. President Carter watched the evacuation reports coming in from across the galaxy. Every human outpost was reporting successful departure. Every human citizen was coming home. And every alien world they left behind was starting to realize what they had just lost, but it was too late to change their minds. The vote had been taken. The decision had been made, and humanity was showing them exactly what too dangerous really meant. Operation Silent Dawn was working perfectly. Soon, the galaxy would understand the difference between having humans as friends and having them as strangers. The difference between partnership and isolation. The difference between cooperation and indifference. The aliens had wanted humanity to be less dangerous. 3 weeks after the last human ship left Council space, the problems began. The first sign of trouble came from the Nexus trade route, the main highway for ships traveling between the inner and outer galaxy regions. The route used a network of jump gates that made travel 50 times faster than normal spaceflight. Human engineers had built and maintained these gates for 15 years. Captain Zelter was hauling grain from the agricultural worlds to the starving colonies in the rim when his ship's navigation system started screaming warnings. The jump gate at Kepler Junction was showing red error codes that he had never seen before. Control, this is cargo ship Heavy Lifter requesting jump clearance to Sector 7. He called into his radio. The response took longer than usual. Heavy Lifter, we are showing system errors in the jump gate. Please stand by for technical assessment. Zelter waited. His cargo hold was full of grain that would spoil if he did not deliver it soon. Behind him, 12 other cargo ships were waiting in line for the same jump gate. All of them carried food, medicine, or other supplies that people desperately needed. Control, how long for the technical assessment? Another long pause. Heavy Lifter, our human technical staff has been recalled to Earth. We are attempting to diagnose the problem with available personnel. Zelter felt his heart sink. The available personnel were aliens who barely understood how the jump gates worked. Without human technicians, even simple problems became impossible to fix. After 6 hours of waiting, the jump gate was declared offline for maintenance. The 12 cargo ships had to take the long route through normal space. Instead of 2 days, their journey would take 3 weeks. By the time they arrived, the grain would be rotten and the colonies would be hungrier than ever. The same problem was happening at jump gates all across the galaxy. Systems that had worked perfectly for years were failing, and no one knew how to fix them. On the military station defending the Outer Rim, General Paul Anderson was watching disaster unfold in real time. Paul was not human despite his name. He was a Rigelian who had taken a human name to honor the human officers who had trained him. He had learned everything he knew about strategy and tactics from human teachers. The early warning system that Commander Rachel Brown had shut down was supposed to be replaced by alien technology. But 3 weeks later, the replacement system was still not working. The aliens had the sensors and the computers, but they could not make them work together the way humans had. Sir, reported his aide, Lieutenant Kriksta, we are getting reports of unknown ships in sectors 12 through 16. Without the early warning net, we cannot identify them or track their movements. Paul stared at the tactical display that showed huge blank areas where information should be. For 15 years he had been able to see every ship within 100 light years. Now he was flying blind. Send patrol ships to investigate, he ordered. Sir, we only have 6 patrol ships available. The sectors in question cover 47 star systems. Paul closed his eyes and tried to think like his human teachers had taught him. What would Admiral Murphy do in this situation? But the human strategies he had learned all depended on having good information about enemy movements. Without the early warning system, he was fighting with his eyes closed. Do what you can, Lieutenant, and pray to whatever gods you believe in that those unknown ships are just traitors. But Paul knew they were not traitors. The unknown ships were moving in formation and avoiding the main shipping lanes. They were either pirates or Void Swarm scouts. Either way, the Outer Rim was in terrible danger on the agricultural world of Ceres Prime. The food distribution crisis was getting worse every day. The automated supply network that fed 47 star systems was breaking down without human oversight. Dr. Nancy Foster had been the head of agricultural planning for the entire sector. She had designed the system that decided which worlds needed what food and when. It was a complex program that balanced weather patterns, crop yields, population changes, and shipping schedules. Nancy had spent 12 years perfecting it. Now the system was making terrible mistakes. It was sending ice cream to desert worlds and tropical fruits to frozen colonies. It was rooting fresh vegetables on month-long journeys while processed foods took the fast routes. Millions of beings were going hungry while warehouses full of the wrong food sat rotting. The Ceresan administrator, a plant-like being named Root Deep, had been trying to fix the system for 2 weeks. He had the best alien programmers working on it, but they could not understand how Nancy had made it work. The logic pathways are too complex, reported his chief programmer, a digital consciousness named 01. The human used intuitive algorithms that adapt to changing conditions. We can follow the code, but we cannot predict what it will do next. Root Deep wanted to scream, but plants did not have vocal cords. Can we simplify it? Make it work like a normal distribution system? Yes, but it will be much less efficient. Food costs will triple and delivery times will increase by 400%. Do it. People are starving. Root Deep approved the simplified system, knowing that it would cause hardships for billions of beings. The elegant solution that Nancy had created was being replaced by something crude and wasteful. The crude and wasteful was better than not. Working at all. The medical crisis was even worse. Dr. Susan Blake had been coordinating disease control efforts for the entire galaxy. Her early warning system could spot a plague starting on one world and have vaccines ready before it spread to others. Without her oversight, diseases were spreading faster than anyone could track them. On the mining world of Titan 7, a simple flu virus had mutated into something deadly. In the old days, Dr. Blake would have noticed the unusual symptoms within hours and sent medical teams with the right treatments. Now, the local doctors were struggling with a disease they did not understand. Dr. Zenka, the Centaurian who had worked with Kevin Walsh, was trying to coordinate the medical response from Council Central. But without human insight into genetic patterns, he was working blind. The virus has changed again, reported Dr. Fluxid from Titan 7. The vaccines we sent last week are no longer effective. Zenka stared at the genetic data on his screen. The virus was mutating faster than his team could develop new treatments. Kevin would have understood the pattern by now. Kevin would have known which proteins to target and which drugs would work. But Kevin was gone, and Zenka was learning that some knowledge could not be easily replaced. Send what medical supplies you can, Zenka finally said, and pray that the virus does not spread to other worlds. But it was too late. The virus had already jumped to 3 other planets, and each world was developing its own strain. What had started as a minor medical problem was becoming a sector-wide pandemic. The communication problems were getting worse every day. The quantum communication network that connected the galaxy was slowly falling apart without human maintenance. Messages that used to arrive instantly now took hours or days to transmit. Sometimes they arrived damaged or incomplete. On the diplomatic station at Alpha Centauri, Ambassador Veltar was trying to prevent a war between 2 minor species. The Kazakian Empire and the Thraxian Republic had been arguing over mining rights for months, and the situation was getting worse. In the old days, Ambassador Harrison would have helped them find a peaceful solution. Now Veltar was trying to do the job himself. The Kazakians refused to accept our proposal, reported his aide. They say the Thraxians are lying about their mineral surveys. Veltar wanted to call both species for a 3-way conference, but the communication delays made real-time conversation impossible. Messages were taking 6 hours to travel between the 3 locations. By the time he received a reply to his questions, the situation had already changed. Send another message to both parties, he ordered. Tell them that the Council demands immediate ceasefire. But Veltar knew that by the time his message arrived, the 2 species might already be shooting at each other. The instant communication that had made galactic diplomacy possible was disappearing, and conflicts that could have been prevented were becoming wars. The research crisis was the most heartbreaking of all. Dozens of projects that could have saved millions of lives were stalling without human participation. The cancer cure that Dr. Collins had been working on was stuck at 90% completion. The new energy system that could have ended poverty on 50 worlds was missing key calculations that only human mathematicians understood. Dr. Clicktar was staring at the vaccine research that Helen Foster had left behind. The files contained 20 years of work, but without Helen's insight, the research team was lost. "We have all the data," he told his team. "We have all the test results. We have all the genetic sequences. But we cannot understand how Dr. Foster knew which combinations to try." The vaccine was so close to completion that Kliktar could almost taste it. But the final steps required a kind of intuitive leap that human minds could make and alien minds could not. Helen had seen patterns in the genetic code that looked like random noise to everyone else. "Keep trying," Kliktar ordered. "Maybe we will get lucky." But luck was not science, and science was what the galaxy needed. Without human researchers, projects that had been racing toward completion were now crawling toward failure. 6 months after the humans left, the galaxy was falling apart. Counselor Zixtal sat in his private office on Council Central and stared at the disaster reports piling up on his desk. The same Zephyrion who had led the vote against humanity was now facing the consequences of his actions. His purple skin had turned pale, and his usually bright eyes were dim with worry. The void swarm had broken through the outer rim defenses and destroyed 3 entire star systems. Billions of beings were dead or missing. The early warning network that could have prevented the attack was still broken, and no alien engineer could figure out how to fix it. The plague that had started on Titan 7 was now spreading across 47 worlds. Millions were dying every day, and the death count was growing faster than anyone could track. The medical response teams were helpless without human doctors who understood how to fight rapidly changing diseases. Trade had collapsed along the major shipping routes. The jump gates were failing one by one, and cargo ships that used to cross the galaxy in days were now taking months to reach their destinations. Food shortages were causing riots on dozens of worlds, but worst of all, Zixtal was getting reports that some council member species were talking about leaving the council entirely. They blamed the council leadership for driving away the humans, and they wanted to find humanity and make their own deals. Zixtal's personal communication device buzzed with an incoming call. The caller was Vice Chairman Koflak of the Altarian Republic, one of the most powerful species in the council. "Zixtal!" Koflak's voice was angry and tired. "We need to talk right now." "Of course, Vice Chairman. What can I do for you?" "You can undo the disaster you created. My worlds are starving because the food distribution network is broken. My people are dying because the medical systems are failing. My trade ships are stranded because the jump gates don't work. Fix this mess or I will." Zixtal felt fear crawl up his spine. "Vice Chairman, I understand your frustration, but we cannot simply reverse a council vote. There are procedures." Forget the procedures," Koflak shouted. "My people are dying. I don't care about your political games anymore. Either you bring the humans back, or the Altarian Republic will leave the council and find them ourselves." The call ended, leaving Zixtal alone with his fears. If the Altarians left the council, other species would follow. The galaxy's government would collapse, and chaos would rule everywhere. Zixtal activated his personal communicator and sent a coded message to his most trusted aide. "Find a way to contact the humans quietly. We need to talk." On Earth, Admiral Chris Murphy was in his office at Luna Base when the first secret contact came through. The message was routed through 6 different relay stations to hide its origin, but Chris knew exactly who had sent it. Desperate council members were trying to negotiate, without admitting they had made a mistake. The message was simple: willing to discuss modified council status for humans. Full voting rights restored. No conditions. Please respond. Chris read the message 3 times, then deleted it. He did not bother to reply. 20 minutes later, another message arrived, this time from a different species. Emergency medical assistance needed. Plague spreading. Will pay any price for human doctors. Please help. Chris deleted that message too. Over the next few days, the messages kept coming. Each one was more desperate than the last. Some offered money. Others offered territory. A few even offered to share their most secret technologies with humanity. Chris collected all the messages in a file and sent them to President Carter with a note. The begging has started, Madame President. What are your orders? President Carter read through the desperate pleas from species that had voted to exclude humanity just 6 months earlier. She felt no satisfaction from their suffering, but she also felt no obligation to help them. They had made their choice, and now they had to live with it. Send a standard reply to all of them, she ordered. The United Earth government respects the Council's decision regarding human status. We will not interfere in Council affairs. Dr. Helen Foster was working in her new laboratory on Mars when she received a personal visit from an old friend, Dr. Clicktar had somehow managed to get permission to travel to Earth space, and he was standing in her office looking desperate and exhausted. Helen, please, Clicktar said in his clicking voice. You must help us. The vaccine project is failing without you. Millions of my people are dying. Helen looked at her old research partner and felt her heart break a little. Clicktar had been one of her closest friends for 15 years. They had worked together, laughed together, and shared the joy of scientific discovery together. I'm sorry, Clicktar. I truly am. But the Council made it clear that humans are not suitable partners for galactic civilization. I have to respect that decision. But you could work as a consultant, unofficial. No one would have to know. Helen shook her head sadly. The Council voted Clicktar. 847 species decided that humanity could not be trusted. I cannot ignore the will of so many people. Clicktar made a sound like crying, which was heartbreaking because his species rarely showed emotion. Please, Helen. Set aside the politics. Think about the people who are dying. I'm thinking about them, Helen replied quietly. I'm thinking about how their governments voted to exclude the people who could save them. I'm thinking about how politics matters more to them than friendship. I'm thinking about how they threw away 20 years of partnership for the sake of power. Clicktar left without another word, and Helen watched him go. She wanted to help, but she had learned a hard lesson about galactic politics. Trust, once broken, could not be easily repaired. On the border world of Kepler-9, General Paul Anderson was fighting a losing battle against the Void Swarm. The alien creatures had broken through his defenses and were advancing toward the planet's main cities. Without the early warning system, Paul's forces had been caught completely off guard. Sir, we're receiving a transmission from Earth space, reported his communications officer. Paul looked up from the tactical display that showed enemy forces overwhelming his positions. Earth space, put it through. The voice that came through the speakers was calm and professional. General Anderson, this is Admiral Murphy of the Terran Defense Fleet. We are monitoring the situation at Kepler-9. Do you require assistance? Paul felt hope flare in his chest. The humans were offering help, even after everything that had happened. Admiral Murphy, yes, we desperately need assistance. The Void Swarm has broken through our lines, and we cannot hold them much longer. I see. And what is the current status of human citizenship in the Council? Paul's hope died as quickly as it had been born. Admiral, you know the answer to that question. Yes, I do. The Council has determined that humans are too dangerous to be trusted with equal status. The Terran Defense Fleet respects that decision and will not interfere in Council military affairs. But Admiral, millions of civilians will die if the Void Swarm takes Kepler-9. That is unfortunate, General. Perhaps the Council should have considered that possibility before voting to exclude human military assistance. The transmission ended, leaving Paul alone with his failing defenses and his dying soldiers. The humans could have saved Kepler-9 easily, but they were not going to lift a finger to help. The Council had told them they were too dangerous to be trusted, and they were taking that judgment seriously. Council Chairman Veltar was in an emergency session with the senior leadership when the news from Kepler-9 arrived. The planet had fallen to the Void Swarm, and 3 billion beings were dead or enslaved. It was the worst military disaster in Council history. This is madness, declared Speaker Threxel of the Andromedan Union. We need human military support. And we need it now. The humans refuse to help, Veltar replied. They say they are respecting our decision about their status. Then change their status, Threxel shouted. Give them back their voting rights. Give them whatever they want. Other voices around the table joined in agreement. Species that had voted against humanity 6 months earlier were now demanding that humans be given full council membership again. It's not that simple, Veltar said. We would need another council vote, and that takes time to organize. Time we don't have, declared Admiral Crixon of the Centaurian Defense Force. The Void Swarm is advancing on 6 more worlds. Without human military doctrine and human strategic thinking, we cannot stop them. Then contact the humans directly, suggested Trade Minister Fluxta. Offer them whatever they want. Money, territory, technology, anything. Veltar had already tried that approach through secret channels, but the humans were not interested. In negotiations, they had politely refused every offer and referred all contacts back to the official council vote. They won't negotiate, Veltar admitted. They say they respect our decision and will not interfere in council affairs. The room fell silent as the council leadership realized what they had done. They had not just excluded humanity from galactic government. They had excluded humanity from galactic existence. The humans were treating the council like strangers, because that's exactly what the council had made them. As reports of new disasters continued to pour in from across the galaxy, one fact became crystal clear to everyone in the room. 2 years after the vote that changed everything, the galaxy was a very different place. The Galactic Council still existed, but it was a shadow of its former self. 15 species had left to form their own alliances. Trade between the remaining members had dropped by 70%. Wars that used to be prevented by council diplomacy now raged across dozens of star systems, but the biggest change was not in council space. It was in the growing power of something called the Terran Commonwealth. President Lisa Carter stood on the observation deck of New Geneva Station and watched the construction of humanity's newest battleship. The ship was bigger and more advanced than anything humans had built before. It used technology that the Council had never seen, improvements and innovations that humans had developed after leaving galactic civilization behind. The Titan's hammer will be ready for service next month, reported Admiral Chris Murphy, who now served as Minister of Defense for the Commonwealth. She's twice as fast as our old ships and 3 times as heavily armed. Carter nodded and smiled. The Commonwealth now included 7 different species that had left the Council in disgust over humanity's treatment. The Altarians had been the first to leave, followed by the Centaurians, the Rigelians, and 4 smaller species. Together, they formed a military and economic alliance that was stronger than the Council had ever been. Any word from our scouts in Council space? Carter asked. The situation continues to deteriorate. The Void Swarm has taken 12 more systems, and the plague Dr. Foster could have cured has now killed 40 million beings. Food shortages are causing civil wars on 8 different worlds. Carter felt no satisfaction from the suffering in Council space, but she also felt no obligation to help. The Council had made their choice 2 years ago, and they were still living with the consequences. Captain Mary Johnson was commanding the Commonwealth patrol ship Liberty's Edge when she encountered her first Council vessel since the Exodus. The Council ship was a heavy cruiser called the Star of Unity, and it was running from a pack of Void Swarm attackers. "This is the CNS Star of Unity requesting immediate assistance," came the desperate call over the radio. "We are under attack by Void Swarm forces and require emergency aid." Mary looked at the tactical display that showed the Council ship being overwhelmed by alien attackers. The Star of Unity had been damaged and was losing power. Without help, the ship and its crew of 800 beings would be destroyed in minutes. "This is Commonwealth vessel Liberty's Edge," Mary replied in a calm, professional voice. "We acknowledge your distress call." "Thank you. Please engage the Void Swarm forces immediately." Mary paused for a moment, remembering her orders. "CNS Star of Unity. The Terran Commonwealth does not interfere in Council space without formal invitation and security guarantees. Please contact your government for assistance." "Our government? Are you insane? We're about to die. I understand your situation, but Commonwealth policy is clear. We respect Council sovereignty and will not violate Council space without proper authorization. Mary watched on her screen as the Council ship's shields failed and the Void Swarm closed in for the kill. She could have saved those 800 lives easily, but her orders were specific. The Commonwealth treated the Council exactly the way the Council had asked to be treated, as strangers. The Star of Unity was destroyed 3 minutes later. Mary made a note in her log and continued her patrol of Commonwealth space. On the research station orbiting Proxima Centauri, Dr. Helen Foster was working on medical projects that would have amazed her old Council colleagues. The Commonwealth had given her unlimited resources and complete freedom to pursue whatever research she thought was important. She had already developed cures for 6 different diseases and created medical technology that was decades ahead of anything the Council possessed. But her greatest achievement was the new vaccine development system that could create treatments for unknown diseases in a matter of hours. Instead of months. Her research partner was Dr. Zenka, the Centaurian scientist who had left the Council to join the Commonwealth. Zenka had brought with him the plague research that he and Kevin Walsh had been working on, and together they had finally found the cure. The treatment is ready for mass production, Zenka reported. We can have enough vaccine for the entire Commonwealth within 2 weeks. Helen nodded and saved their research files. The cure that could have saved 40 million Council citizens 2 years ago was now available only to Commonwealth members. The Council worlds where the plague was still spreading would not receive any help unless they formally requested it and met Commonwealth security requirements. Have there been any official requests from Council worlds for medical assistance? Helen asked. Many unofficial requests through back channels, but no formal applications. Their governments are too proud to ask for help. Helen felt sad for the people who were dying because of their leader's pride, but she had learned not to let emotion override good judgment. The Council had taught her that partnerships could be thrown away for political convenience. She would not make that mistake again. In Council space, the disasters were getting worse every day. Chairman Veltar sat in the emergency session that had been running continuously for 6 months. The same chamber where humans had been voted out was now filled with desperate aliens trying to figure out how to survive without them. The Nexus. Trade route is completely offline, reported Trade Minister Fluxta. All 6 jump gates have failed, and our engineers cannot repair them. Shipping costs have increased by 800%, and 17 agricultural worlds are facing starvation. The military situation is even worse, added Defense Minister Crixon. The Void Swarm has destroyed 37 of our colony worlds, and we cannot stop their advance without the early warning systems that humans built. And the plague continues to spread, said Medical Coordinator Threxel. We are now looking at potential extinction for 4 different species if we cannot develop effective treatments. Veltar looked around the table at faces filled with despair and desperation. These were the same beings who had cheered when humanity was voted out of the Council. Now they were learning the true cost of their decision. We have to swallow our pride and formally request Commonwealth assistance, Veltar said quietly. We cannot continue like this. The Commonwealth requires full diplomatic recognition and mutual defense treaties for any assistance agreements, replied Foreign Minister Squishka. They are demanding equal partnership status. Give it to them, declared several voices around the table. We cannot simply erase 2 years of hostility, Veltar replied. The Commonwealth does not trust us, and they have no reason to trust us. We threw away their friendship once. Why would they believe we would not do it again? The question hung in the air like a curse because everyone in the room knew the answer. The Commonwealth would not trust the Council because the Council had proven they could not be trusted. 3 months later, the formal delegation arrived at Earth. Chairman Veltar himself led the group of senior Council officials who came to beg for humanity's return. It was the most humiliating moment in galactic political history. President Carter met them in the same conference room where Ambassador Harrison had once planned Council diplomatic strategies. The room looked the same, but everything else had changed. Carter sat at the head of the table with Admiral Murphy and Foreign Minister Foster flanking her. The humans looked calm, professional, and completely in control. Madam President, Veltar began, his voice shaking with nervousness. The Council recognizes that we made a terrible mistake 2 years ago. We are prepared to offer humanity complete restoration of Council membership, including permanent Security Council status and expanded voting rights. Carter listened to the offer with polite attention, but her expression never changed. Chairman Veltar, the Terran Commonwealth appreciates the Council's offer, but we must respectfully decline. Decline? But ... But this is everything you wanted. Full membership, equal status. We are offering you more power than you ever had before. Carter smiled sadly. Chairman, you seem to be under the impression that we want to return to the Council. I'm afraid that assumption is incorrect. Veltar looked confused and desperate. Then what do you want? Money? Territory? Technology? Name your price. There is no price, Chairman. The Council taught us a valuable lesson 2 years ago. You showed us that our contributions were taken for granted and that our partnership could be discarded whenever it became politically convenient. But we were wrong. We admit we were wrong. Yes, you were wrong, and we learned from your mistake. We learned to be more selective about our partnerships. We learned to work with people who value friendship and keep their promises. We learned that some relationships, once broken, cannot be repaired. Admiral Murphy leaned forward and spoke for the first time. Chairman, the Commonwealth has mutual defense treaties with 7 different species. Those treaties were negotiated in good faith with people who respect us as equals. Why would we abandon reliable allies to rejoin an organization that threw us out once already? Foreign Minister Foster added her own thoughts. The Council has had 2 years to see what the galaxy looks like without human participation.